Pastor
I'm now
Martin!
good. Yeah, Pastor Ayo.
Yeah! How are you?
I'm good. My most sincere apology to everyone and to yourself. I don't know what's been going on, but yeah, I'm sure glad that I'm now on. Hello, can you hear
Not a
me?
problem. How are you doing today?
No, no,
I
I'm
can
good.
hear
I'm
you.
good. Okay, cool, cool. No, I'm very good, and I count it a great honor to be here with you.
Ah, Nkosothes, my lord. Thank you. I count it. I need to be serious. I count it as an honor. So I really do. Thank you so much for agreeing. And I just want to quickly type our topic for those that are going to be joining us later so that no one
Okay,
asks Uti what we are talking about. So I'm just going to quickly type that because we are
all right.
talking all things searching,
Okay.
courting,
Uh-huh.
and marriage.
And marriage, my
You
goodness.
know?
One of my favorite
Yes.
topics. One of my favorite topics.
With Pastor. There we go. So I've put that in there.
Okay. All right,
And
cool
I just
beans.
want to pin that so that
Cool.
everyone can see.
Okay, cool stuff. Is my camera okay? Is it visible
There we
and my
go.
sound?
Yes, your camera is fine. You are visible,
Okay.
and I hope you're ready.
No, I'm good to go.
Should
I'm
we
good to
go?
go.
All right. So, Pastor Martin, I had this topic in my heart for the longest of time. First and foremost, welcome to Conversations with Pastor A, and I really
Come
hope
on.
that we're going to. I
Yeah.
I hope you're going to have some time. So, I had this topic for the longest of time
Mm,
because we know, Uti, number one, dating is one of the most famous topics in the body of Christ.
yeah.
Um, Number one, because I believe people actually want to be in relationships, which is not a shame. Number
Exactly.
two, I believe that because the Bible, I'm not gonna say it has it's gray area, and there's no gray area, but there's not enough information to almost guide people around the biggest decision of their lives, which is choosing a life partner.
Yeah.
And if Paul is anything to go by, I mean, I take Paul's dating advice with a pinch of salt because the man of God Jay, is like, okay, if you guys are if you guys are burning with passion, Mary, like Paul didn't have time. He didn't have time, you know. He said, if you don't have a gift like
Yeah.
myself, go ahead. And he almost as though
Yeah.
marriage was an escape to feed a sexual desire, which we know that it's just a portion of this union, but it cannot be based on just that.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Um,
Completely agree.
yeah, so I really wanted just for us to sit because as well you are leading a ministry, you are called of God, you sit in that fivefold ministry, it just becomes that much more intense in
Yes.
ensuring that you are finding someone not only compatible for you, but compatible for that which you do, you know.
Yeah.
And I find that men like yourself are so misguided in how to choose a partner. And I say this because I've collected data over the years because I've been the woman on the other receiving end, you know,
Yeah.
sitting with an amazing man of God who's just saying all the wrong things, you know. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, is this how you're going to choose? And
Yeah.
if we don't correct um how men are choosing, we are going to find a lot of men stuck in finding people that are serving what they do and not serving who they are,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. For example, before I hand over to you, I remember long ago, I used to sit in these meetings because like, back in the days, we don't do like how this generation do, but like back in the days, the man of God would go speak to the pastor would arrange a date, and there'd be a third party. Do you remember that? People don't know. This generation doesn't know. And there'll be a third party, and you will
Yeah.
be called. And I sat in those meetings with different people who I honor today, but I sat with them, and all they told me was what God had called them to do, as though I'm being
Mm.
recruited for a position, you know. And they said, and even one man of God said to me, and I quote him, he said to me, God has called me to lead this 10,000 sister church, and I know that you are going to take my ministry to the next level. And there I am thinking, eh? And for me,
Yeah.
I've always had a belief, Wuti, ministry starts at home.
Mm.
But we both know, by the experiences and the people that we encounter, Wuti, a lot of ministers, they lead successful churches out of broken homes.
Mm.
Their
Mm.
wives are broken, their children are broken, but all you see is this church that continues to flourish because they have poured their energies into what people can see on the outside, and no one has the time to sit and look at what's happening on the inside,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I feel that is why that's where most people are. It's just that no one is ready to talk about those things right now.
Mm. No, no, no. I'm in complete agreement. Yeah. Absolute complete agreement. I don't know if you want me to do
So
that.
let's rewind. Let's take it all back. Let's take it all back. Yes. So, Pastor Martin, is your network? Can you still hear me?
Happened. I can hear
Yeah,
you.
no, no,
I
don't
was just
worry. You're
asking,
back
I don't know
on.
if
Yes.
you, okay. So do you want me to
So,
jump in on that now or what?
so I think I want us to go back. Let's now just rewind the clock a bit. And you are single.
Yeah.
You are on fire for God. You are called.
Yeah.
You are in the forefront. There is no one that looks at you and don't see themselves as a compatible partner. You know how it is. You get
Yeah.
invited from church to church. Yeah, it's crazy. You're a single man. So just tell us, take us back there, and what influenced you? What made you ready? What influenced your decision, to say, I'm ready, I can start testing the waters. So over to you.
Okay. So I think, man, what a great intro for one. I think that's just intro option. I think you've set a very, very great foundation. But I can tell you something. I'll be very vulnerable in terms of how I answer this question. And the truth of the matter is that if we really have to be honest, is that the journey of self-discovery or self-awareness is quite a long one. And as a result of that, the truth of the matter is that uh, let's say you are in your 20s, you somehow trying to find yourself in terms of what you believe God has called you to do, career-wise, and also in terms of family and all that. And also at the same time, there's that boy who just wants to have fun. Um, I like what T.D. Jakes says when he says that, there's a kid in every king and there's a king in every kid. And depending on the days on which you deal with me, you might just find the kid, and then there's another day where you can find the king, right? And I think
Okay.
oftentimes, uh, when we focus a lot on the king aspects, people say we're too stuck up, we're not romantic and all that type of jazz. And then when we move on the other side of being a kid as well, you can easily be accused of being childish. So I
Too
think it's
playful.
too playful. You understand what I'm saying? So I think it's very important to somehow live in tension. And most of what I say today, I don't think I'll be completely objective because I've got the benefit of hindsight. Because let's say prior to me now getting married and saying, okay, this is the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life, I didn't know a lot of stuff about myself. I didn't even know a lot of, in terms of even what I wanted. I didn't quite know what that was, what that looked like. And also at the same time, there's that side of like, okay, I'm dealing with youthful things, like, okay, that girl is pretty, let me go for her. And then on the other side, the flip side, I have to deal with the fact that I believe that there's the call of God upon my life. And I constantly have to live in the tension of that. And then also we see there's the public perception of how a man of God is meant to, to be navigating through those type of streets. So, Pastor Ayo, it's not an easy one, hey? But I think at that moment, for me, when I look back now, I can say it took a lot of faith, honestly speaking, because like I say, you don't have all the facts. You don't know what you want. You don't know yourself. You don't even know the person that you'll be dealing with. But ultimately, how you even go about it. I like to use this, and I'll be very brief. I like to use this example that, in Genesis 2, God says it is not good for a man to be alone. And then now, from that point onwards, we're introduced to Adam, who now starts naming his animals. And then God makes him go to sleep. And then when he makes him go to sleep, God takes out a rib, makes an Eve. And then when he wakes up, he then goes into this poetic trance and he says, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. It's as if there was this reflex of, okay, God has put this person in front of me, right? But I still have to be romantic. I still have to choose this person. God might have made this person for me, but I still have to choose this person. But now here's the thing. I don't know where this woman is coming from. I don't know her background. I don't even know myself. So for myself to actually come to that place where I'm saying I'm choosing this woman, I don't even think it's literally like a criteria per se. I think there's an element of faith that we often have to go through.
Okay, that's interesting. Pastor Martin, tell me, I remember sitting with Ama Young Lion as a table.
My young lion. Yeah.
I remember sitting Ama Young Lion in Durban, anointed man of God, which I respect to this day. And
Yeah.
it was funny because they were having a conversation, and two of the pastors in that session were not married, right?
Yeah.
Then the other pastor starts saying, my guy, listen, there is a worshiper at that church, and when she worships, heaven comes down. And then another one said, no, there is another intercessor. You know that woman when she intercedes, and all of them they are showcasing someone's gift where someone is graced by God, and almost putting that in the forefront to say, because she intercedes, she will complement your ministry, because she worships. Loretta, who can't you hear properly? Sorry, someone said I can't hear you properly. Is it me? Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me now? Am I a bit? I just turned my volume up. Can you hear me? Am I good to go?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? All right. I think they will comment if they still cannot hear me. So,
Okay.
I saw people in their respected offices, right? Choose partners that will complement the ministry.
Mm.
And I'm not oblivious to the fact that there's a huge responsibility that falls on you when there is a calling upon your life. You cannot go for someone who doesn't understand those dynamics. But is that where you start, though? Is that where you started? Did you choose someone? Tell us.
No, and I think it's very important for us to. I think that's such an important question, right? Because I always say that if someone is gonna end one who is called, it's like hooking up with someone who already has a child. You understand what I'm saying? So oftentimes you find that the recipient of that gift or the recipient of that calling is very jealous in terms of how he guards that. So as a result of that, you'll find people who think, unwittingly even, to say that, okay, I need to find someone who's going to complement my ministry and all that. And I think that has its place, because ultimately you don't want someone who's going to kill the vision. But I think the starting point has to be the place of desire. You look at Genesis 1, God made man in his image and in his likeness, and then it talks about how they'll be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. But that's very much dominion-based, it's purpose-based. But how Adam chose Eve, it came from a place of desire. Because ultimately, I think before you even love the ministry of a person, you have to love their soul. And that's why we even talk about the whole concept of a soulmate. And that's what I mean.
Okay.
So I think that in itself of actually loving a person, loving an actual person, loving their soul is absolutely, absolutely essential. But ultimately, and that's why I say, the issue of faith comes into play at such a big, 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 big level because ultimately you have a vision, you believe that you have a purpose, and the person that you're going to run with, you want them to somehow complement that. But as you rightly said, I think it's just very important that from the onset, it must be that I'm about this person. I want to do life with this person. I love their soul.
At which point, Pastor Martin, be real with me now. If I
Mm,
meet you at a Sunday service and you're lifting up your hand, I don't know your soul.
exactly. Yeah.
When did you discover? Ma'am, I love her soul.
And you know what's the funny thing about this, Pastor Ayo? Like, people like to date with that whole sense of novelty. Like, imagine, like, many of us, when we thought about, let's say, you know what, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life, we did not necessarily think of someone that we knew, right? You probably think, in Lagos, America, or whatever the case may be. But what I've seen is that, marriage, if you can, not even just marriage, relationships, if you can eliminate the element of surprise as much as you can, the better the relationship tends to go. Because sometimes it's not even a question of whether people love each other or not. Oftentimes it talks about the general health of both of the parties. It talks also about just the emotional and the mental maturity of the parties. So for me, I could put it this way: that how did I know that I love the person or the soul of my wife? It was because we were somehow conversant. We did life together. You know what I mean? Fab, and look, I think predominantly, I can't lie to myself and say, okay, I love the soul first. I loved what I saw. I loved her. I was like, okay, not even just love her. I was like, okay, she's fine. I want to do life with this person. And then when you get to know a person, you're like, wow, man, she's actually better than she looks. And then from that point onwards, I think that's where I think that you can set like a very, very powerful criteria. But as a minimum standard, obviously you want to say, okay, this person is born again, they've got a real relationship with God, they're a person of the opposite sex, and then also now the issue of chemistry. Do we actually flow? Do I see and when I'm a chorus, I just see a dropping water. You've put the cart, what do you call the cart ahead of the horses.
Mm. Sorry, can you still hear me? I feel like there's a. Can you hear me, Pastor Martin?
Perfectly.
Is
I
it
don't know if
okay?
the
I'm
guys
not.
can hear us.
All right, I hope so because when you speak, I can hear a majority of everything, and then at some point it just cuts. But I hope that that's just on my side. But I hope everyone can hear us. Please let us know if there's any distortion in the sound. All right. So I want to ask you specifically now, Pastor Martin, what
Mm.
were your non-negotiables? Like this person had to be like this, otherwise this conversation ain't going further than this first date.
All right. So, like, I mean, I've already mentioned around the fact, okay, so basics. Uh, Obviously, born again, opposite sex, that's like baseline. But another thing that was absolutely important was, you know, there are sisters out there who want nothing to do with him. Like, so for instance, right, besides being a pastor, which is my absolute primary call, and I identify myself as a pastor, by training, I'm a lawyer, right? Now, you might hook up with a lady who thinks I'm hooking up with a lawyer. And
Okay.
I don't identify myself primarily as a lawyer. I
Okay.
identify myself primarily as a minister of the gospel. So
Okay.
for me to see, Guti, you know what, she actually does not like my ministry, does not like the fact that predominantly I identify as a minister of the gospel. For me, that thing would have just ended everything, right? So I usually like
Okay.
to mention that first date like a young lion type of guy. And then
Okay, Pastor
ultimately,
Martin,
yeah,
okay, we're on a first date. You're telling me that you're a pastor.
yeah.
What are you looking for primarily? Are you looking to match my desire for the ministry, or are you matching my value? Are you looking for my value system? Are you looking if I'm going to be able to assist you? Give me an idea. Why is that being spoken about on the first date? What do you want from me?
No, and funny enough, for me, it was not, I was not, so I would not say that so as to say, can you match me? But it's literally saying, this is me. Do you still love me? Do you still
Okay,
respect me? But at the
okay,
same time, I was not looking at it from a perspective of like, okay, this is a mindfulness. I'm looking at this is a woman that is absolutely hot. I like her.
okay,
I like the way she does life. Let's do life. And I'm telling you,
okay.
particularly, and another thing that a lot of ladies don't appreciate, and I think, I hope I don't get into trouble for this. I'm speaking from a guy's perspective, all right?
Yes.
Choosing a life partner is a big deal, guys. It's 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 a risk.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So let's say we go on a date, and then we go on a date, and it's clear, Oguti, this thing won't work out. Please don't just look at it from your perspective of saying that I led you on.
Okay.
I just somehow came to the conclusion that I don't think we can flow well together. And
Yeah.
people hate, or maybe hate is a strong word, have a strong dislike for young ministers, or just let's say Christian guys who somehow, and I'm against this whole thing, but let's say they've kept their options open, which is not a great thing. I'm against them. But he went for one date and maybe at a different stage went for another date. If let's say a person went for another date, it's it's literally, I'm saying, okay, maybe like that one did not work, right? Or I don't see us flowing together. And then I go with another person. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily a person who doesn't have integrity. It just
Yes.
means that I'm not about you. I'm not.
Yes.
And I'm allowed
Sandile
not to be
says,
about you.
is that because we've taught ladies, Uguti, the minute you ask me on a date, you're asking for my hand in marriage.
That's exactly it right there. You see, that's the biggest problem. So like even in terms of how now as guys, they'll say that maybe we are ambivalent or we're ambiguous in terms of our approach, is because we are trying to guard their heart as well. Because look, I am not sure, right? And at times it's not even that I'm not sure about you, but I'm not sure about where I'm at in the season of my life. It could be
Oh, wow.
around issues of finances. It could be around the fact that I think maybe you're way ahead of me in terms of just, career development and all that type of jazz. And I can make a decision based on all those things. And the thing is, at times, you can make, like, let's say, make a decision and say, I'm no longer going for this person. And someone can literally doubt your integrity from that moment. And why can't that be
Sure.
human?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely get you. I completely get you. And I think this discussion is going to help both ladies and men to say, Wuti, when we are testing the waters,
Yeah,
we just having a conversation. I'm not asking you to invest. It's not an investment yet. We are just still ascertaining, Wuti, is it
exactly.
worth pursuing?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
because in our churches of color, we haven't opened up platforms for those kind of conversations.
Mm,
Usandile is right, and I don't blame anyone because I've been that type of girl who was taught that kind of doctrine. Uguti, if someone asks you on a date, Nje, they need to know their story. They need to come there guns blazing. You must already be telling me, Uguti, in 6 months' time, what are your plans?
yeah,
Because that's what dating was about. And I'm saying, Guti, by the way, we need to change this whole description of we dating. We need to
yeah,
change it in our churches of color because that's what's causing the biggest mess amongst young people. They don't know what to do. They don't know what type of conversations to be looking out for. So you find
Mm.
because the ladies are so hurt, and when you listen closely to why they're hurt, I'm thinking, but when did this man make himself known to you? Like there was nothing there, and already you were so invested, positioned, and I was
Yeah.
already in the missing born with I am Pastor Martin's do or die, and that's not the
Yes.
case.
Yeah. No. No.
So
And I
tell
think
me,
yeah.
I want to know, um, so when you met Mrs. Right,
Mm. Mm.
and you were still just, what made you say, "Mhm, it's the one"?
No. I tell you what. You won't believe this, right? So I think initially I saw her as a younger sister, right?
Okay, I need to grab my children.
So I saw her as a younger sister, and I related to her as as a big brother, and whatnot, and then we ended up singing together in the worship team.
Okay,
Over time, I started a group. Da, 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 da. She joined the group, so we related with each other from what would I call this? Yeah, outside of quite a lot of the spiritual stuff, right? And then from that point onward, let me mention something very interesting about her. I think the one thing that made me so attracted to her, she was not too available, and she did not make it
mm,
too obvious. Because as a young lion, I mean, I was leading worship in the church where I was attending at the time. Uh, at some stage, I think, let's say maybe it was a church of around 1,000 people or so. So you have such a huge platform. You are leading people into the presence of the Lord. A lot of women are seeing themselves in a certain way. Maybe you know what, I can be mindfulness. She was normal. Even like at moments where I would try to
okay,
walk her home after church, she would literally tell me like, "No, I'm good, bro. I'm okay." So life happened, our friendship grew and all that. But over time, man, I just realized that no, man, there's something about. I seem to care a lot about this lady. And I eventually moved to Joburg from Cape Town. And whenever I would go on dates, I would feel like I'm cheating on this girl. And I'm like, how do I feel like I'm cheating on this lady? And I'm not even like, you understand what I'm saying? So there
yeah,
was in 2017, and I'm gonna mention something I think that's absolutely important. I'll be brief.
yes,
We were singing at another concert, right? And then she came out. We came out of that concert. She says to me, because we had been talking over the phone. I'd asked her out another time. She turned me down. Now, can
okay,
you like proper ten, okay? And then she's like, "I'm tired of the games that we are playing. What's happening?" So
okay,
my best friend came through, and he's like, "Bro, this lady would be a good wife to you." And I'm like,
okay,
okay. At that moment, I took his advice, right? I'd always felt so. I never loved her because he said I must love him. But in terms of making of a decision, it was influenced by counsel from a very, very, very trusted friend. And at that moment, I had to cancel every single option and say to myself, I'm about this lady.
wow,
That
sure,
was it. And from that point onwards, it was so amazing. Like after I asked her out, things just began to flow in a way that I had never even seen. And even in terms of my own interests as well, like the stuff that I was pursuing, there was a certain flow around it. And I think, Pastor, I really want to address this amongst our sisters. Guti, look,
uh-huh,
you are not necessarily there to build a guy up. I'm not saying that. You are not coming
come
with,
on,
cement and all of that. But, man, when the right woman comes, it's amazing, like how things sort of fall into place. I'm just saying, man.
yeah, okay, okay, okay. I'm like, so all right, I want to go back to my notes because now you've just, yeah,
I'm
you've
so
done.
sorry.
No, it's great. It really is great.
Yeah.
And tell me, Pastor Martin, what was important now for you? What was important for you personally to have in order? And now I'm not talking about finances as much as that is important.
Yeah.
You know, your ability to provide in whichever capacity, you know.
Mm.
And even those dynamics these days are beginning to change anyway. What
Yeah.
was important for you as an individual um before making this decision to say, let me make sure Uguti, I've got A, B, and C um in check, you know,
So are you
so
talking
that
about her or about myself?
about you.
Okay. No, so I think for me that's a very, very like it's a very, very difficult question to answer in the sense that um, I somehow knew that it was time,
Yeah.
and I somehow knew that she was the one,
Okay.
but I was a mess in every single
Wow.
department you can think of. Um, and that's why at times when I look at that whole, the tick box approach that we often give to people about dating and about choosing a life partner, I'm like, I don't think I tick any of the boxes.
Wow.
Uh, you understand? And I know that there was a season. I don't know. I could be wrong. When we started dating, they asked her, "Are you sure about this guy?"
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Because things were somehow they were quite myopic. It was just fires here and there. There was not really an element of consistency about it. But one thing that I had is that I had faith in God, right? And I had a
Yeah.
woman who was willing to just believe in me. There was a woman who was about me. There was a woman who was willing to stand with me, who was seeing beauty in my brokenness. And that's what it really came down to. Because
Lord.
and I'm not even trying to preach. Like this is I'm just putting it as raw as it can be. Like I was,
Mm,
and my lady was like, "Ish, man, this might come out the wrong way." Um,
mm,
there were quite a lot of guys who found her very attractive.
mm.
And there was this guy, Martin. He's out there, he's crazy. Why him? And when I look
Yeah.
at it, and I'm like, okay, so there was that element of grace about it. So when I look at it, it's very difficult even to give to someone, let's say, a formula in terms
Yeah.
of what's the way to go about it. Because when I look at my
Yeah.
own life, I probably let me even be honest. I don't think if Spare, let's say I was not the one who was after Spare, Spare had come to ask for counsel from me about me, I don't think I would have recommended me. But in the midst of that, she was still willing to give us a chance, and things unfolded from that point onwards.
Pastor Martin, are you saying to me right now
Yeah,
that we should stop, and maybe not completely stop, but we should not make this whole tick box, he needs to have these things in order sort of thing, a blueprint nje, because it could be that, and I always use this example, it could be that when two people come together, they
mm,
activate the grace that both of them have for each other. So I'm able to see in a king what you can't see because it has not been granted for you to see what
exactly,
I have been given by God to see. So, what
exactly,
I like about our conversation now is that it's restoring prayer in our courtship.
exactly. Oh, that is so good. No, Pastor, Ayo, when I look at it, I think for me, the relationship was somewhat of a grace relationship, to be honest. In the sense that I'd gotten an opportunity with a great girl, and we somehow flowed. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Yeah.
what also helped us in our friendship, or not our friendship, our relationship, was the fact that there was a very strong friendship foundation. And I think oftentimes, people tend to rush into intimacy in relationships, even in dating relationships of Christians, that they don't give themselves
Yes.
an opportunity to actually develop genuine
Yes.
intimacy of friendship. like just to get to know each other's
Yes.
soul, to flow as people.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. That in
Yes.
itself really like it really helped me out. But I want to touch on something very interesting, and I think this will help
Yeah.
the guys as well, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how things align when you make a decision. I
Okay.
like how, okay, I said, okay, this lady, okay, that's one decision. And then number two, okay, we need to pay Lobola. Man,
Yeah.
everything stopped. The spending had to shift. Business
Yeah.
started flowing from another perspective. And even just around the time of the whole wedding and all that, I really
Yeah.
think that God respected the fact that I had made a decision. And the book of James talks
Mm.
about a double-minded man.
Mm. Mm.
It's quite unfortunate that
Mm.
oftentimes, and I think I'll tell you what, I think that's one of the reasons why, even around the issue of marriage and relationships, the reason why people don't trigger you find guys you find guys who even closer to the wedding, they're still chatting up with other girls, hooking up, and
Mm.
are you hearing? Can you hear me?
So you're cutting there. You're cutting quite a bit, but maybe repeat your last point.
No, I'm just saying that I think one of the things for us as guys that we need to be careful of is, I would say, a point of that indecision stops the flow of provision. So the
Mm.
moment you decide to say, I'm
Wow.
about this person, this one person,
Yeah.
heaven will back you up.
You know, Postmaster, I want to go back to a point that Uskumbuzo just made. And he's making his point rightfully so. A lot of
Mm,
people worry about entering into intimate relationships even before they marry. So they're saying, how can we date without sex? And I feel, Uguti, we've elevated sex so much in a relationship.
mm,
We've made it such a focal point that people don't think anything else outside of that. And it's not until you're married for so long that you realize, which as important as it was, but sex doesn't bring up kids, nor does it pay the bills, nor does it build a
yeah,
home. You know,
mm,
it's just,
yeah, yeah,
but obviously there is an element of compatibility in
yeah.
that area that needs to be concluded upon. Now, at which point do you actually conclude on that? Is it what you feel? Because girls feel butterflies. I don't know about what guys feel. We feel, but you the minute you, I don't know what guys feel. We feel like our stomachs are turning and we can't breathe. And usually people say that's common sense leaving your body, but we feel something. And
That's
I just
common
want to
sense living
know.
your body.
I want to know, Ubuti, at which point, and I'm actually studying a lot about this, actually, Pastor Martin, because I want us to change the narrative here.
Mm.
Sex and sexuality or chemistry and all these things. At which point do we say, "Hey, let's talk about this"? Are we in the same page about this? Yeah. Tell us.
For one, I for one, subscribe to biblical teachings around issues of sex, sexuality, and whatnot. But I think from the onset, it's very important for us to realize something, that one of the ways that you can mess up a Christian relationship, it's one of the ways. Now, here's the thing: it's not necessarily cast in stone that if this is messed up, the relationship will fall. That's not the whole thing. But if you introduce sex too early into the relationship, you can distort things. And it's like literally putting
Okay.
yourself on a treadmill, and it just on the highest speed possible. And you find yourself that you are moving at a pace whereby you're not necessarily capacitated to walk in it, right? And that speed, most relationships have been killed by that speed, because you don't necessarily give yourself an opportunity to know each other and develop real intimacy. Because that's the thing, the issue of intimacy is multifold. It's not just
Teach
sexual
them. Teach,
intimacy.
teach them. Teach them. Pastor Martin, I am here for this teaching.
No, but I mean, I think for me, it's very important for us to understand that intimacy is on many levels. I mean, there's intimacy at a friendship level. There's intimacy at I don't know what as well, a spiritual level as well. There's even intimacy. We can say sexual intimacy, but that in itself, I think if you miss it in terms of the friendship intimacy, the spiritual intimacy, right? The sexual intimacy can break a relationship. And the thing is this, sometimes, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, it's the work of purity in relationships is not easy. And and here's the thing, I think the challenge around it is the condemnation that is often that we often have to deal with as a result of, maybe let's say, falling short in a particular season. Now imagine thinking to yourself, this person is getting in the way of my relationship with God. Now, as a young
Yeah.
lion, already you are like Jezebel,
Yeah.
Jezebel, Jezebel, Jezebel. And shame, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
she's just a human being. You know what I'm saying? But look,
Yeah.
let me address the question. Ultimate compatibility has to do with values. That is what it's about. Like when
Wow.
we are in a dating stage, we are not checking our sexual compatibility. We are checking
Mm.
compatibility in terms of values.
Mm. Okay.
That's the thing. The other stuff, look, for me, I think it's this. When you get into marriage, you need grace now to navigate around sex altogether. And
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
and it's so funny that when you are outside, the enemy wants to like like it's like
Yeah.
he makes it like we need to have it now, we need to have it now, we need to have it
Yeah.
now. And then when you get in, he can fight you in that very same area, and you find that actually it's not what I thought it is when before I got in
Yeah.
as well.
Wow. That is something. Like I feel that there are so many people when you say Duguti, people don't know how to navigate around the space. I
Hmm.
can rightfully put it to you like this, Pastor, because I get a lot of these either inboxes or calls where I say to someone, Nisa abstain na yini, but I imag, I get to abstain na man. But in
Yeah.
and this generation has almost, and I'm not going to be rude and say, Uti, it's because they don't respect um that area or they don't respect themselves. I just feel like it's been such an exalted part of these relationships that that's what everyone is falling into. Everyone is falling into the trap
Hmm.
of ruining a chance of really understanding do we have intimacy beyond what you and I are feeling in our bodies right now. And I
Hmm.
feel like if we don't teach what is the value of sex and why would God suggest that you wait?
Hmm.
People are just not going to get it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are also men, and I always say to ladies, and maybe because I'm a bit biased, but I always
Hmm.
say to ladies that you can't park a car in a closed garage,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
meaning that we play such a huge part
Mm-hmm.
in the fulfillment of a sexual relationship. And
Yeah.
it almost sometimes feels like the lady actually needs to know her story, but the guys also need to know their story because men lead. And I think,
Yeah.
Pastor Martin, if you can just tell us, Ubuti, as men out there, these young men, what must they actually go back and revisit on how they are going to explore their dating world, Nje, or how they're going to approach dating moving forward? Yes, they've made their mistakes, they've had failed relationships, maybe they've even done things that they were not supposed to do, and that completely messed up everything. But now approaching a new relationship, what would you say they need to really focus on? And just take sex aside. Take sex and put it out of the occasion for now. What would you say now being married? I'm so glad I actually focused my time maybe on her values, or I'm so glad I got to know her personality, or I'm so glad. So, what can you say now that you're married? You are so glad that you actually focused on whilst you guys were still dating?
I think for one, I'll answer it this way. One of the things that's going to be absolutely essential is the ability to distinguish between singlehood and marriage. There's a lot of people who are dating who are acting like they are married. And as a result of that, a breakup looks like a divorce. And I'm telling you.
Let me just get some chocolate.
I mean, look, man, I mean, look, I know you want to be Bonnie and Clyde, you want to be Beyonce and Jay-Z, all of that type of stuff. But I mean, there are people who, whilst they were dating, bought houses together. And now it's a breakup. And how do you deal with that? Like, it's on the practical side. But the point of the matter is this. When you are single, you are single. And when you are married, you are married. So for one, I think just the mental state, your ability to define what's a dating relationship, what is marriage, is absolutely essential. Because for one, Pastor Ayo, and I've said this, I don't know if you've heard me say this, I don't believe that there's an unsuccessful dating relationship. I think that relationship, so if let's say you and I, or whatever person I dated, things did not work out, that relationship has succeeded in showing that we were not meant to be together, or we're not meant to be doing life together. But on the other side, with marriage, marriage is a covenant thing. It's way more than how you look. It's way more than like how you are serving food or the sex. It's a covenant. So I think for one idea that I would give to someone is please be single. Please be single. A double-minded man will not receive anything from the Lord. So that's one. And then the second aspect is this. Relationships generally don't do well because people love each other. They do well based on the health of each individual. So focus on your health. And that health is on so many levels, Pastor Ayo. It's spiritual, it's emotional, it's mental, it's financial, it's physical. That in itself, ultimately, is what that person will have to deal with in your relationship. So your emotional
relationships don't work out. I think that just needs repeating.
Yeah. So relationships don't work out based on how much people love each other. They work based on the health of the parties that are in the relationship. Because that in itself, right, it says that it means that we're going to deal with conflict resolution at a very, very mature level. It means that you are able to overlook an insult. It means that you are able to live in the stage that you're in. It means that you're able to project in the future and all that type of jazz. So I think oftentimes, people are so concerned about the romance part of it. And they miss out on their own selves. Like, work on your soul. Even as your soul prospers. Your soul gives you the ability to love yourself. And it also gives you the ability to love other people. Because, it's so amazing, Pastor Ayo, and how many of us have been in abusive relationships and we did not know it. Because according to us, we deserve to be treated at that level. The shape of our soul is able to move. It operates at the type of level. So even if someone is constantly treating you at a level way below yourself, you are not able to leave the table because you feel you are worth that. So you are worth not being called. You are worth a person still keeping many options. You are worth a person disappearing on you for a whole week. You are worth being disrespected. You are worth someone wanting to mess up with your purity. And that's the thing. Work on your health in every element of your life.
And so what I'm getting from you, Pastor Martin, right now is that maybe I'm as important as the person that I'm looking for.
That's it.
I am as valuable as the partner that I want to attract. I
Yes.
am as important, you know, as the health of the state of the person that I want to find.
Yes.
So there's so many times that as women we get so hurt in the disappointment of what we received that we don't
Mm.
even take time to actually really look Uguti, did maybe the state of my soul had everything to do with the mess that I have attracted, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm listening to you now and going back to Sarah Jakes. I read Ibula Sarah Jakes not so long ago, and
Mm.
she said you need to study what you've been attracting if it's the
Mm.
wrong thing, because
Mm.
maybe
Mm.
the problem is not with who, the problem is with yourself, you know.
Yes.
So right
Mm.
now I'm just stuck on that, Uti. We need to be as healthy as the relationships we desire, meaning before
Exactly.
you, I am who I need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Because if
That is
I
so good.
value myself, there is no way that I will not want to be valued in the same level. If I love
Exactly.
myself, there is no way I'm going to accept mediocre love. If
Yes.
I, hold myself at the highest regard, there's no way you can disappear for a week and I interpret that as love. And so I
Yes.
want to actually now go back. I come from a background, and I want to get a bit personal. I come from a background where there was no love really modeled.
Mm. Mm.
My mom got married at 17, then her marriage didn't work out. Then she just decided to live her life as golden.
Mm.
And so even with there was absolutely nothing. And
Yeah.
funny enough, my aunt once called us and said to us, I mean, out of her own experience, that Nganzam, don't get married. Marriage is a trap. Just have friends with benefits. That's what my aunt said. That's what I am being as real as I could possibly be. That's what my aunt said. She said, "Nganzami nje, please, if you're gonna do yourself any favor, just don't, because of
Mm.
where we come from."
Mm.
And so I don't want to say this, Pastor Martin, as though it's automatic, like working on yourself is automatic. It's
Mm.
not. It
Mm.
has to take God to show you, Uguti, you've been hurt at this level of maybe love. You don't
Mm.
understand love enough. So why don't you stay away from attracting people that will love you wrong until I'll show you what love really
Mm.
means? And I just really want us to stick on that, Uguti. Maybe encourage people to say, take time out, before you start blaming the state of your relationship on another person. What has
Mm.
your shortfall or your hurt or your limited background contributed to the current state of your relationship right now?
No, no, no. That's so profound. And I'll say something maybe as somewhat of a follow on to my last point. And that is relationships are not meant to save you. Or let me put it this way, romantic relationships are not meant to save you. And that in itself, I don't think it undermines even the principle that says, as much as we are hurt in relationships, we find healing in relationships as well. Because that's the
Mm-hmm.
truth of the matter, that we are hurt by people, but we are also healed by people. There are
Mm-hmm.
certain types of people that you walk with that begin to heal you. I think that
Mm-hmm.
happens in itself. But here
Yeah.
is an aspect that I think is absolutely, absolutely essential. And I think it comes down to the issue of what true love is all about.
Okay.
Because oftentimes our idea of love is rewards based. You love someone because of, you don't love
Mm-hmm.
someone in spite of. And I think
Okay.
for me, someone who truly loves you is someone who's able to become privy or become aware of your brokenness and
Mm-hmm.
still see beauty in spite of that. Because the truth
Mm-hmm.
of the matter, we married, right?
Yeah.
Pastor Ayo. And here is the thing: marriage has a lot to do, or how do I put it? It doesn't necessarily work on people changing. It works on you accepting. You must accept that this will not take away my peace. So you never suspend your love for someone because of their brokenness. You have to love them in spite of that. And that is why it is absolutely essential that the person who loves you as a minister does not just love your ministry, but loves your soul. Because even us, many of us don't realize this, that, being a Buddhist is not a synonym for wholeness. Some of the most fiery ministers are some of the most broken people that you'll ever meet in your life. And funny enough, probably that fire in their ministry stems from that brokenness. But the very same thing that fuels them for their ministry is the same thing that makes them a living hell to live with them when they are off the stage. And I think we just need to be very, very much aware of that. That look, as much as you've dealt with this. I mean, you've just explained your background. You've just explained to me what you've gone through. Look, some of those wounds, I'll be honest with you, they take very long to heal. They may take years. And I think even in the dating stage, there's a serious question that you have to ask yourself. What if this person does not change? In fact, they might not change. In fact, they will get worse. Because it's about that whole iceberg effect, right? In the sense that there's this iceberg that you're seeing here just on the surface. But what you don't understand, you are seeing a behavior, but you don't know what led to it. Like below, there is so much. You are seeing a king, but there's a kid who's crying there. He's crying there. There's so much shame, there's so much guilt, and all that type of thing. But I want to say something, that one of the things that I've really appreciated about God's love, or the love that my wife has for me, was that it was somehow able to heal me. And she didn't play the role of God, but God used her for that. In the sense that, how do I put it? And I'll be very brief. It's like, after being loved so well, I realized, wait a minute, I'm actually a respectable man. And the whole world must respect me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I had found a corner that is willing to tell me the truth, but also at the same time, this is like someone who believes in you. This is someone who's speaking life into you. So I think in all of this thing, we're not saying, look, these are the requirements. This is the way to do it. The thing is this, you are going to meet someone who's most likely not whole, right? But what you want to try and do over
Pastor
time.
Martin,
Yeah.
It says I've got a minute remaining, right?
Right.
So we're going to conclude this part one. People, please don't go anywhere. And then I'm going to invite you again as we just take this conversation to the next level. So I'm going to end this live as part one. Grab your coffee, grab water. You need chocolate as well. And we'll see you now, okay?
All right, cool.
Okay.
Sure.